1. Castillo followed by Whitaker and Trammell. Marty struck out, called out, and singled in the 4th inning. 1-1. That Gibson could get to second, and he lines it to left. Back goes Martinez, gone.
That was Vin Scully's call of Lance Parrish's home run in the 1984 World Series. I was trying to get the Kirk Gibson one, and all the audio just sounded bad, so I didn't want to put that. And yes, it is a Wednesday thing from here on out to answer the question on YouTube, Jeremy. So Vin Scully passed away yesterday, one of the greatest broadcasters of all time, if not one of the best. And he left a legacy behind him. He did Dodger baseball for almost 50, I believe over 50 years. In fact, 67 years.
Yeah. I think I saw that he did more years after winning the Ford Frick Award for, being the best baseball announcer or whatever than he did before he won it.
That's tremendous. That's when you go to the Hall of Fame, correct?
I believe so. Although did they want to change the name of that award, because I thought there was some Ford Frick friction. But anyway, no. For my money, Vin Scully. I know everybody. Everyone in Detroit loves Ernie Harwell, and Ernie Harwell was great. And I don't think you're not denigrating Ernie Harwell by saying Vin Scully was the best announcer of all time. I think like comparing Ted Williams and Babe Ruth, right?
Yeah, it's
in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, absolutely that way. I think one thing that he did is he diversified himself into other sports a lot more than Ernie Harwell did. Although Ernie did some of that earlier in his career, I just think at some point he stopped. He wasn't going to go do college football or anything after, it seems like about the 1960s. So you got to see Vin in a lot of different formats. But to me, one of the coolest parts about baseball being streamed and the MLB package is how many times back around 2008, 2009, I would be either up late to listen to Tim Lincecum pitch or watch Tim Lincecum pitch, or I would put the Dodgers on and have Vin Scully in the background. And it was just really phenomenal every night. And I never would have got that without the MLB package. So that was something that streaming really did for us.
And you're talking about other sports. You're absolutely right. Him and Dick Enberg, who is another favorite of mine, a local who graduated from Central Michigan, kind of set a standard for Central Michigan grads. They have a great program out there. Anthony Broom, Chris Castanelli. I mean, of course, there's others like that have graduated from there, but I'm talking in terms of local presence and what kind of school that kind of talent they bring out there. And yeah, it's Vin Scully. I always think of every national. I think of also like MLB '99. It was a PlayStation 2. But he was everywhere, and his voice is so smooth, and just even yesterday I was hearing the 1990 Fernando Valenzuela no-hitter call, and just letting the silence. He was one of those guys that let the crowd do its thing.
Yeah,
and that's something you don't see very often now, and he was gracious, really, really gracious. So,
another thing was, when he was with NBC and they had the World Series there in the 80s, he just had some really great luck that the 80s had some wonderful World Series. I mean, he's sitting there for the Buckner play. He's there for Gibson's homer. Both of Gibson's homers for that matter. So he happened to be there in the great moments, the great memorable moments, and he was the perfect guy for it.
He wasn't there for the Bobby Thompson home. Well, I mean, the Giants won the World Series on that, but yeah, he was, was on the losing side of that. Yeah. Ernie was on the radio call. Yeah, he was on the radio call for that. So, welcome into another episode of Woodward Tigers here at woodwardsports.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Chris and Uper. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and at woodwardsports.com. I wanted to mention this because we had an email this week, and I wanted to make sure that we plug this more because we don't. If you have a show question, if you want to participate in the show, shoot us an email at woodwardtigers@gmail.com. Again, woodwardtigers@gmail.com. I'll make a point to put it in the show notes on the podcast so you can just simply click on it and email it. And we had a gentleman who gave us an ugly this week, Tim, and he said I'm not on Twitter, and I realized good point. So if you have a question and you don't have social media and you just want to email us, again, woodwardtigers@gmail.com is the fastest way. I'll put your question or segment on air. So plenty to get to this evening. There was one of probably the most historical trade deadlines we've ever seen. The amount of talent, the amount of bodies are shared. So on the Tigers side of things, it's not really. Well, we'll get to that too. There's not much to say about that. And yeah, Perry brings up a good point about guys are getting paid by the word. We're trying to say something hot, but there's a lot of broadcasts. We know. We're fortunate enough to know Dan Hasty, Greg Gagne. There's Dan Dickerson, Matt Shepard. I know people don't like Matt Shepard, but I think Matt is a good guy, and overall, he's really good at Michigan basketball, and I think he's trying in baseball. So I think when people rag on him so much, I just don't understand the putrid hatred for it. So it is what it is. It's a hard job to do, and I fumble over my words constantly. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't mind him at all. So yeah, let's get to the trade deadline. There was 50 moves since the All-Star break, guys. 50. We're not going to do all 50 because we want to keep this moving along. But this was a insane trade deadline, and there was always the rumors about Scooble, but we knew better. Quite frankly, that wasn't going to happen. And then, of course, his injury now with his forearm. We'll get to that, which is just, man, it's damn it, the season has sucked. God, come on, it's just everything that has gone wrong can go wrong. Murphy's Law. If you want to put a phrase, Murphy's Law, and then Lynn Henry reporting today essentially that El Avila will be gone after the season, which I think would be a foregone conclusion. But we'll get to that. But let's start with the trades, and we'll go with the Padres, who decided to load up for Bear, and the Athletic gave out grades for trades, and they were going over them all. And it was funny because some of the teams, the Brewers got C+, and rightfully so, because they really kind of, and the Dodgers got a D+, but the Padres got an A+. So this is what the Dodgers have acquired. They got Juan Soto and Josh Bell for the Nationals in exchange for 3 prospects. I'm not going to go over the prospect side of it. They acquired Josh Hader, and they traded Eric Hosmer to Boston for Jay Groom, which I didn't know he was still around. Did you guys know Jay Groom was around? Wow. It's a name I haven't heard in a while. And they got infielder Brandon Drury for the Reds. And it's just one of the most impressive things about this trade deadline is they used their prospects they had. The Padres have a pretty deep system. And then what I find kind of funny is the Nationals decided to send Luke Voit down to AAA. Voit,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I read that today. But I'll start with you, Chris. As far as, the Padres seem to make all the headlines, but was there a team that may have surprised you a little bit and got better?
There were some surprising deals that one thing we often complain about with the Tigers over the last few years is the lack of kind of creativity. And so the Yankees, made a couple trades that were normal, right? They traded some prospects for, Frankie Montas, right? And was it Lou Trevino?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then like one of the deals right before the deadline, they traded their number 4 starter. Excuse me. Didn't they trade him for Harrison Bader, the center fielder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Montgomery. They traded Jordan Montgomery. Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan Montgomery for just a random kind of, 4 or 5 year big leaguer for a 4 or 5 year big leaguer. And it's just interesting to me, like these teams making deals on the margins, I guess, like, hey, we've got enough space here to improve in this one little area. This is what we need to do. And just some deals like that, again, we don't see a whole lot of that from the local baseball franchise.
Yeah, and in terms of defensively, I believe he grazes one of the best center fielders in terms of defensive metrics, correct?
Absolutely. And the Yankees already, I believe, are the best defensive team in baseball, at least according to Fangraphs. So just an interesting, just moves you would never expect. I don't think you would say, hey, here the 70-win Yankees, they're going to trade their number 4 starter. So I don't know. It's, I'm trying to think of, there weren't necessarily the giant deals that I expected after the Castillo trade to Seattle. It felt a little bit like, oh man, okay, Seattle gave up 2 of their top 5 prospects, maybe 3 of them. I don't. But the 2 young shortstops you figured were probably they didn't want to part with. But Seattle's like, yeah, we're going all in. So you thought, okay, that's going to be the price for these multi-year starters in the market. And then it just never materialized. A lot of the names we heard, including Tarek Skubal, just it never seemed to be real. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. I was kind of hoping for just mayhem, chaos, as it were.
Chaos. We were waiting for that. But Uper, what about you? What team surprised you at the trade deadline?
Well, the Red Sox sold, so that's something you don't see every year. I wonder what that means for them next year with Bogarts and JD Martinez to hit the market potentially. So that's one of the powerhouse teams of the American League in sell mode, which you don't often expect to see that. I thought Tampa brought in a couple of nice players to help them where they're weak, and really, I do want with Seattle kind of going sort of all in. It's interesting. Does the 2 out of 3 format make the wild card going for the wild card that much more attractive? Instead of just a one and done and kind of a dice, flip a coin game. So it was just a fun week, other than the Tigers' static attitude toward things, and I think the Twins. I think that Reilly guy's going to help them because they're weak. Chris Archer goes 4 innings tops most of the time. I think he kind of helps bolster them to win this division, and they brought in 2 good bullpen arms with Fulmer and Lopez. So I think the Twins might have really helped themselves kind of stave off the competition here.
Yeah, I really like the Twins deadline. I mean, you get Lopez and Fulmer, and then you get a 4th starter that's really going to give them some innings down the stretch. And because the White Sox did absolutely nothing. The Indians did barely nothing. I mean, they traded Sandy Leone to the Twins. So you give your division rival a defensive catcher presence, because Gary Sanchez, let's face it, is not a really good defensive catcher. He can hit the ball, but you gave Leone a veteran catcher back there, and their philosophy of reforming the roster from a home run type roster to just getting contact and drawing walks and having these prolonged at bats has benefited them. So now you have a really good, you got Lopez back there now. Lopez, I have to say it that way. Lopez, you have Lopez back there, and Fulmer, who pitched today against the Tigers as the Tigers lose the series to the Twins. And then here's what the Tigers got for their postseason grades. You guys ready? Whoa, no, not a beat. No. Sorry, oops. Right there. A D.
A D.
Big old D. And I'm surprised they did not they didn't get F.
You don't know anything. You don't know squat, you stupid idiot.
Baseball America had a list out today where they ranked the 72 prospects that were dealt over this deadline period. And the 2 guys Detroit got, Gibson Long came in number 64, and Anglin was number 72.
Well, let's talk about the Tigers trade deadline, shall we? Because we're all talking about the trade line. It just makes sense. Look, as far as what they can do with Sawyer, Gibson Long, who, by the way, sounds like a Rush song, which is why anybody, I'm sure. I mean, people were Rush fans among our crowd, but maybe a middle reliever. I thought he had a good changeup, good slider. His fastball seemed pretty hittable. I watched another start of his today. I know Trevor Huth from Bless You Boys did a player breakdown, but they must have saw something with the slider and change that can make him. He's currently starting right now. He's actually going to be appearing on Friday. He's going to start Fort Erie in Portland on Friday with Ty Madden going on Sunday for the Seawolves, which we'll get to. The minor league stuff we'll get to a little later. But as far as this stuff goes, it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing that really stands out. And then the other gentleman, Chris Anglin, I guess somebody comped him as looked like a Josh Hader lookalike.
Oh, just because of his hair, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's tiny. He does not throw up. He basically barely touches 90. It sounds like.
Yeah, and we're all saying,
Who's that dude?
Because we have no idea who he was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It very much felt like that. That meme, like our expectations were low, but and then swear words. I was stunned by how poorly they did at this trade deadline. It's almost like they were prevented from making moves. The moves were so poor, and I don't want to down these guys that they got. Baseball players can improve and get better, and just because you're not on a top 30 list doesn't mean that you're not a top 30 prospect. You won't find Josh Crouch on a top 30 list anywhere except ours, and I firmly believe he's one of the top 20 prospects in the entire system. So maybe the guys they got from the Twins has a future, but it's stunning to me that they couldn't get at least one top 30 type prospect they had 4 really good relievers to trade, at least. And we weren't expecting to remove them all, but Fulmer absolutely neutralizes right-handed batters. I don't know how you can't find one contender who can use a guy like that and is willing to part with something of value. Joe Jimenez is that in a year of control. Chafin, I don't get it.
You blew it!
It was stunning. I think we may have had some suspicions, but it was stunning to hear see the quote yesterday that a few calls were coming in, but the Tigers weren't calling anybody. They don't make calls. I mean, they don't create the market themselves, obviously, then. They wait for these things to come to them. I can't believe that's the modus operandi there. I mean,
this is getting to be a pain in the ass.
What is the sense of that? I don't see. It was really something to see in print.
Yeah, and the thing is that again, that I expect a top 30 prospect for Robbie Grossman? Hell no. That I expected a wild card or we call it a lottery ticket. Yeah, absolutely. But a guy in complex league that they must have been like, hold on a second. Let me rummage through here. Hold on a second here. You guys looking for lefty? Hang on. Chris. Hey. How about Chris Anglin? Who?
Sure.
He's lefty. He's complex league. Really good. He's got a good slider. Okay. All right.
Al said, okay, I got to go to bed.
Yeah. Some of the things he said in the press yesterday was just telling, and maybe he knows he's gone. I don't know. I don't know. And we'll get to that part right here in a second with what Lynn Henning said. But I'm looking at and even today, it's just we'll get to the game today too. The game's a different. This week's been a giant crap sandwich with steaming hot plate of cheese. I can't really, without going too swear bomby and all that. And I have, so here's what let me pull up the comments. Why did the Tigers move into the relief pitcher? This is what Cody Severhagen said. And this is Avila's quote, there wasn't much conversations as I think the media made it out to be. However, there were some. We decided that the possible return we talked about just did not move the needle for us at this point.
This is getting to be a pain in the ass. Excuse my French, but I'm starting to get annoyed here.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What? There nothing inside. Nothing enticed you. Nothing. Okay, so I mean, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I mean, if the offers they were getting were equivalent to what they ended up getting, then maybe that didn't move the needle. But it's boggles the mind that they couldn't somehow create a market for these guys who are objectively good relief pitchers that every contender wants at the deadline. Every contender went out and got relief pitchers. Even some non-contenders did it.
Yeah.
The Rockies re-signed their 38-year-old closer. Call the Rockies, see where you can get. But it just strikes me as there was a famous situation that happened with Michigan football way back in the day, like 2007, 2008, when Lloyd Carr retired, and they supposedly Les Miles was going to be the new head coach, but the athletic director at the time, I believe, was out on a boat somewhere in the middle of the Caribbean and couldn't be found to confirm it. That's what this felt like. It felt like the front office was like, oh yeah, he's at yoga. Like I don't mean to denigrate these guys. I know that they were probably trying and working, and the front office does work, and they do a lot of preparation for these sorts of things, but the results are just so underwhelming that you can't help but wonder if they even tried.
Yeah.
How can you not go out and sell the fact to somebody that, hey, Michael Fulmer, as you said, completely dominates right-hand batters. How is that not going to help you win a World Series this fall? That's going to help you win a World Series. Let's make a deal here. There should be a way to do that. I've never obviously been on one of those calls. I don't know how they interact with each other, but I have a feeling that AJ Preller doesn't take no for an answer too often. I bet he makes things happen versus all of those deals just coming into his lap. So it's just mystifying. It's really hard to believe that a team 20-something games under 500, right? And they've been there for a while, and they've been in this rebuilding process. And we thought that they were going to show some motion this year upwards, that we come to the deadline, and whether it's through injury, poor performance, lack of depth, or just being a horse bleep team, they did not have one marketable entity to put on the trade market. What kind of indictment is that on Illich's organization? You didn't have one really marketable guy that half the league was going to be fighting for to maybe augment their team. There's not a guy on the roster.
Here's another quote too from him today. Cody tweeted this earlier. Quote from Al Avila: "The market was flooded with relievers, and whether there was more buyers than relievers, I think there's more relievers than buyers this time around." What kind of Yogi Berra shit is that? It sounds like some Yogi Berra would say. Said the Twin
Rumsfeldian.
Yeah, and then he said
some relievers out there to a certain extent to the north and the central and the west and then the east.
Yeah. And then as far as the Twins came along, quote, a little bit later in the process of Michael Fulmer. And then this is the quote he said about Derek School. Quote, "It's not like we're calling teams and trying to push the issue," Al Avila said at Derek School. "I explained to you guys very well that if the right deal were to be pursued, then we have an open mind and look at it. And you know what?
Bullshit. That's how I feel. Total fucking bullshit."
Look, whatever. Again, we're not in the rooms. We're not in there. We're not in the trenches. And then the last quote that I wanted to mention here, quote, "Obviously, there's still opportunity here to go in the offseason or adding hidden talent. It could come in a trade in the offseason, or quite frankly, it could come through free agency too," end quote. And Michael said something too that he's absolutely right on, that there is a reputation that people don't want to deal with Avila because he overvalues things. And then this is the other part of what Michael said here in the YouTube chat. Avila said he can also fix his team with trades and more likely free agents this offseason. This kind of scares me. No creative thinking in his moves. And you know what, Michael?
Bullshit. That's how I feel.
Total
fucking bullshit.
In regards to what he said, Al Avila said, not you, Michael. You're good people. But yeah.
Well, again, Lynn Henning believes that Avila's gone after this year. I think everybody believes that happens. But if he's not, we've got a pretty long track record of what Al Avila does with trades and what he does in free agency. And we'll have a piece on that eventually. But it essentially means he's lost. He gone! Was that Khan?
No, that was
the Hawk.
He gone!
Hawk Harrelson.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Avila has lost roughly 75% of his trades at least from a WAR perspective. And on the free agent market, he's paying about $15 million per win. Whereas you want it to be more like under 8. I mean, 8 to 10 is like considered what the actual value of a win is. So if you can get more than that, that's great. So yeah, I guess all the Tigers need to do is spend like $300 million, and you got your extra 20 wins next year, and there you go. That'll get you to 500.
You know, is Xander Bogaerts going to come to Detroit? Why would he leave Boston to go to Detroit? Hitch his way into that.
Wrong!
You know, I mean, come on. This is unbelievable.
I don't know. Are they going to go after Wilson Contreras? Are they going to
Wrong!
get the corpse of Michael Conforto if his shoulder has been rebuilt? I don't.
Look, the thing about the trade deadline that really I'm glad they didn't trade Skubal. I'm glad they didn't trade Jimenez, quite frankly, too. But I think I think people now are just like, all right, dude, you need to move on. I mean, we got Christopher in here, we have usually in our YouTube channel, we have pretty good level-headed people, but even the rational people are like, we're done here. We're absolutely done.
Well, you know, Henning thinks he's done. Avila's moving on, but I'll tell you, if he's still the figurehead of the organization right now, the public face of it, why was he in charge of this deadline? If Illich knows he's out, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence that he's done.
Well, you know what, Uper, we have somebody in the chat that said this. I'm not sure you can see this, but Perry said no one defends Al Avila like Lynn Henning. For him to write, that means Avila's in trouble. And
fair.
You know what?
And
look, and when we were at the House of Gurash a couple of years ago, and we met up with Henning didn't say where he gets the sources, but he knows a lot. And so I hate when people give him crap on Twitter sometimes about, oh, you're just an old man. No. Henning knows a lot. He's not gonna tell you how he knows things. I mean, just like yesterday, Chris and I were discussing roster movement before it happened last night. I'm not gonna tell you how I know that, but I can't defend. But yeah, no one can defend him anymore. You can, even like I said, somebody in the Discord was like, "Oh, you guys thought it was going to be 500." Nobody, not the three of us thought not any one of us, and this podcast said the Tigers are going to the postseason or going to go to 500. They get better, but no one. Blood Right, don't do that. Look, Blood Right, we like jokes, man, but come on. If he's seen another 10, go ahead.
I think I had them at 79 wins, and then they traded for Meadows, and I said 81. But I think I can't count how many times we said, hey, they might be better, more talented this year, and it'd still be worse because baseball's weird. And then baseball got really weird, and also the talent went away. I don't know what happened. It's been strange.
Yeah, you were the low man on the totem pole, correct, with wins?
Yes, and I was wrestling with even going lower. Not that I saw all this happening, but you could just I never felt confident about how good they were last year. That was more my thing. You know, I thought that there was a little bit of a mirage to some of that last year. But, you know, it is, and you have to be realistic too. They have suffered through some bizarre stuff this year. There's no question about that. And you can't put all of that on Avila, but at the same time, you're not going to fire the owner. You can't do that. And if you're going to make changes, that's where it's got to be. But, you know, I'm sure he did not factor in the bizarreness of Austin Meadows' year. He didn't imagine Rodriguez disappearing on them. You know, no one did. And so, you know, I give him a little bit of a pass on that. But the overall mountain of evidence we have, it just comes down to, are they going to want to flush out the whole system, or are they just going to make a change in one chair?
And look, I think that you're right. There's a lot of things that happen that have been very unexplained. However, be that as it may, and I've been steadfast about this since day one, you didn't do enough to address the depth. You could have gotten to some minor pieces. You have guys sitting in your system right now that, for whatever reason, you don't bring up. So if you're not going to bring up Quincy Deporte because he's not clearly a major league player, then why go through that? You brought all these Jack Lopez. There's Brendan Davis. There's guys that in the farm system right now that you're not even going to bother to look at. So why bring them in? Why did you not bring a reinforcement for first base, a backup, or like somebody like Brad Miller was out there? That made no sense to me because you're going to trust Torkelson's just going to take off like that. That's a lot of pressure on one man, and that's not fair to him. And it clearly has messed with him somewhat mentally. But to sit there and go, oh, you know what? We're going to have 2 rookies, and well, everything's going to be fine. We're going to have a guy in Akil Badu who struggled the second half of the season, but he'll be all right, and they put too much faith in what they had versus, okay, you know what? Let's sign a veteran guy who could, even normally it would sound like a bat like Nomar Marza or whomever as another veteran, but that didn't even happen. I mean, as far as you got Tucker Bernhardt. That trade was applauded. You got Baez, you got the Meadows. And then you got the trade for Meadows. But even before that trade, even before Reilly Green went down, I still thought the Tigers did not do enough to address the little things, and you were just putting way too much faith in variables that really were clearly, I think, already skewed.
Yeah, well said. For me, the one I was always just worried about, and it went even worse than I thought, was they stumbled into a career year for Robbie Grossman last year, which was great. But the idea that he was going to come back and duplicate that or even be 90% of that, to me, was always very questionable because that's not who he's been for his whole career. And he went even beyond, he went backwards even beyond where he was in his prior career. I thought that was very easy to see. I don't know how they didn't.
Well, they moved the walls out on him.
Well, hate when that happens.
I'm looking. I don't know what his career platoon splits have been, but it was so incredibly bad as a left-handed hitter this year that it was one of those situations where I just thought he should probably just try to hit right-handed at all times. How much worse could it possibly be than 143 with 1 home run and 196 at bats? Let me check 2021.
Oof.
Come on now, 20. So last year he hit 221 as a left-handed hitter and 279 as a right-handed hitter. So he's always been better from the right side, but 221 with 15 home runs would be acceptable, I think, and 71 walks. That's more than fine. But yeah, just cratered this year. I don't know. I mean, I think, as we said, we were mostly reasonable. We thought this year would be kind of a stepping stone year, right? Get the rookies' feet wet. Another year of development for the young pitching, and get kind of these. We thought the veterans would continue to be quality, near average-ish players. You get close to 80 wins. You feel like you're heading in the right direction. You make some more splashes in this offseason, and just about everything went wrong. And so, yeah, and then after the trade deadline, it's hard not to feel like you're just in like a giant hamster wheel here. Like at least with the Reds, they went and they sold everything and they got a ton of really interesting prospects. So you could say, all right, well, this sucks. We're kind of rebuilding again, but look at all the talent we've acquired. There's a lot of potential here. The Tigers didn't acquire any real talent. So it's just, they're just here with the same guys. Give it another go next year.
And that to me is at least a little bit better, puts their GM in a better light that the Reds had assets to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a bad team, but they had guys who were marketable. And the Tigers, quite frankly, I don't know who they were going to trade this year that would have done something similar. They just didn't have it. One thing I wish they could have done was if they could have grouped those relievers together into maybe a package of 2, could they have gotten something better that way? But obviously the Tigers don't pursue that stuff.
At least we're not
Mets fans begging for Fulmer and Chafin, both of them.
Yeah.
And I guess fans in the front offices don't align. I guess that probably doesn't happen very often, but still.
You know what? Bloodbright brings up a good point here. Maybe that's what it is. It's conspiracy, but you know what? Or irresponsible speculation. But honestly, I mean, but here's the reason why I think Bloodbright might have a point. We saw Boston and Houston trade with each other. They're familiar with each other. You know why? Because they all work together. In Tampa, also. They all made trades together within the same 3 organizations, and they're all familiar with each other.
Yeah, I would hesitate to say that because I'm not entirely sure that Dave Dabrowski is a beloved figure among other general managers.
Yeah.
He's kind of cutthroat himself. But I do think it's telling that Avila and Dabrowski, as far as I can tell, haven't made any real trades. Maybe who was the one catcher they got for John Schreiber? Was Dabrowski still there at the time?
Oh, the guy that was in Double-A, and then we never.
Yeah, he never played a game in the system.
Yeah.
You would think that maybe the guys who worked together for 20 plus years would have some working relationship, but I guess when the one guy gets fired and the other one takes his job, that's going to create a little bit of an awkward situation. But
yeah, not to mention maybe he knew about it the whole time, and that we don't know.
He had to have known about it for multiple days beforehand. We've heard many rumors, as Michael brought up earlier, that the Tigers consistently, and it's not like they're asking for a lot. That happens in every negotiation with deals. We remember when those Astros emails leaked out years and years ago. They were always asking for way too much, but then it's a negotiation process, and it seems like that's the sticking point for the Tigers is they ask for a ton and then they don't really move, or they just go silent, and other teams just move on. They go, all right, well, if you have a more realistic deal, then we'll talk to you, and then they don't, and Tigers wait for them to circle back around, and it doesn't happen. And yeah, I mean, the talk around baseball right now, around lots of baseball. So from what I've heard now is that everybody keeps asking if Avila is going to be fired soon, and if the other guys are trying to push him out from behind. And it's ugly. It can't be a great working environment there right now in the Tigers front office.
By the way, I just want to share this because at least we're not the Pittsburgh Pirates.
What do we have here?
So that's owner Bob Nutting.
Yes.
And that's a fan who has sell the team next to owner Bob Nutting.
Oh.
That right there is fantastic. Right there. That fan is. Imagine somebody doing that to Chris Ilitch. I couldn't see that happening. Immediately, we just swarm like whoosh, that wouldn't happen. But no, and Christopher brings up a good point on YouTube, and he's absolutely correct. Randy Smith traded with his dad all the time in Houston, all the time. Same where he was familiar with the Padres. That's an excellent point. He always did that. He loved, for whatever reason, he also liked ex-former Braves. For example, George Lombard was a Brave. Nieves, a former Brave. There was another, I'm thinking of Kareem Garcia was a former Brave, I believe. There was a couple. He was in Arizona for whatever reason. He loved former Braves, and he had a certain type of guy he liked. And another guy right now who's in Double-A, or Gabe Alvarez. I mean, he was obsessed with Southern California guys because that's who he was familiar with. You go with what you know.
And really, how many GMs are contemporaries of Avila? I mean, they're all pretty much at least a generation younger, if not two.
Yeah, I mean,
we were kind of discussing this in the Discord a little bit, that Avila is a baseball lifer. He comes from a generation of a baseball family. He's been around baseball forever, but that's not the same as having relationships with these guys and like hanging out with these guys. And it's silly, but I compared it to like any keeper fantasy league. I'm in a keeper league where I've been in the same league with like a dozen guys for 20 plus years. Ooh. And yet I only trade with like 3 of them because we have the understanding. We're like, it's basically like, when I'm tanking, I will trade you my veterans for your prospects. And then when you're tanking, we'll do the same. And that's basically like, we have an understanding, like, I understand what I'm getting here, and there's not going to be any, like, you're not going to try to pull one over on me. And it's, I don't know. I don't think that Avila has earned that trust or that, I don't know, that friendship from the rest of the general managers around baseball. And, it's got to be kind of a working animosity, I guess. You want to beat these guys, but you also have to keep it within reason. Otherwise, they're not going to deal with you. And we see the results. Like, I don't know, maybe last year just made everybody unrealistic. Maybe getting anything for Daniel Norris, let alone a top 20 prospect in the system.
He's back, though, Chris. He's back.
Yeah, Daniel Norris is back. Hooray.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a good trade.
Yes. Droll, very droll, yes. Whimsical, yes.
That is amusing, yes. Quite jocular, yes.
Yes, mirthful, yes.
Okay, that's enough frivolity.
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah. So, anyway, disappointing week.
Yes.
Just kind of now begins the dog days where just the who the hell is that? Who's that dude? Portion of the roster is coming. the Derek Law era.
The sheriff.
Yeah. So
Who's that dude?
this is
Oh, you know what?
Yeah. It's did Reilly Green have a great catch tonight? You know, did he have a couple good at bats? That's what we're looking for. That's really all the year boils down to.
pretty much.
Yeah, and also, I mean, what's going to happen here is we're hearing it very faintly right now. Okay, and another thing. Rah. Look, you're hearing that now. And by the way, everybody in Discord who talks Detroit Lions and tells us that that we're crazy for not following the Lions or whatever. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. You can say whatever you want. And I hate how you have to explain fandom to people. Well, you live in Detroit. You're not a Lions fan?
Nope.
No. I stopped on narcotic a long time ago. I mean, like, go well, Uper, that's you. That's your own fight battle. But anyways, you can root for whoever you want. I don't care. I'm not gonna give you crap for whoever. Well, I just did, but you're different because you're from the UP. That's different. But either way, I just think that when it comes to the Lions, Chris and I think we're. It's weird how you and I are in sync about a lot of things, but the Lions one right step in line.
Mostly it's just a mystifying thing to me. The and I've talked about it before, and this is a Tigers podcast, whatever. But there's a I don't know. I make it. It's like a 3 to 8 year cycle from Lions fans where the new GM comes in. This is going to be the one who gets it right. It's looking good. Bring in the new coach. We like this guy. He's got to install his system. First year doesn't really matter. Get the good draft picks. Second year we made some progress. Third year, hey, what's going on? Why isn't this working? It's either horrible by the third year or by the fourth year he's gone. Same GM. He has to get this hire right. Brings in the new coach. This new coach has a new system he's got to install. Takes another year or two. Things look good. Things don't work out. Year 4, new GM. And it's like we talk about how much the Avila era has sucked for Tigers fans. It's 6.5, 7 years. The Lions have been doing that for 10 times longer. 10 times. Their last championship was 1957. I don't know how people keep getting sucked in. Like, I understand it's a sport. Everyone loves the NFL for some reason. And do what you got to do to be a fan. Have fun on Sundays. But like, I can't with the people getting sucked in every time. Oh, this coach is going to be different. He loves his team. He says crazy things, and then 2 years later, the crazy things are just super annoying, right? Like,
that's the thing. That kind of stuff has shelf life.
The curse of Bobby Lane. Yeah, Jeremy's right. The curse of Bobby Lane. Whatever the case is, if you like the Lions, cool. I went to the training thing last week with my brother-in-law, and it was just, yeah, my brother-in-law is season ticket holders, but I'm a Tiger season ticket holder. I mean, this is last year because obviously I'm in a different capacity now, but nevertheless, I had to block that. Stupid bots. But yeah. Anyway,
it's like when Jeff Passan got infiltrated by the Bitcoin or Ethernet coin thing last year. That was hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't blame people, I guess, for turning to something because the Lions are something different and they're going to be on TV, and the Tigers are so pathetic, and that really drives home how pathetic the Tigers are. That it's people are just gearing up for this 5-11, 5-12 season.
Damn it, you, Brad. I had the cutting. I cut you
always
off.
comes. That's chin music for you for every time.
Sorry about that. As soon as I pulled it, I'm like, "Oh, he's second week in a row." I interrupted him. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh man, all right.
It's hard to believe that. One thing that they haven't won a title since '57. They've only won one playoff game since then. That to me is unbelievable that they just didn't luck into a little wild card win once or something. That's shocking.
Nothing. And the Cowboys, we celebrate that win like it's the Super Bowl. And I watched that game when I was a kid. So it's yeah. Anyway. At any rate, okay, it's now time for the inside numbers. Uper, what is your inside number?
My inside number is 80. That's the WRC plus of one Whit Merrifield. So heading to Toronto, assuming he got the jab, and I'm sure he probably is going to, because he had to have assured them he'd do it to make the trade, right? You got to, so they actually gave up a couple of halfway decent players to get him. The thing about it, of course, this trade for the Royals is probably at least 3 years late, maybe more. His production really started to fade a bit in 2019 and has really gotten worse this year. Although I guess the last month he's playing better, so we'll give him that. He had a game-winning homer the other day. He's going to be the poster child to me of a bad team holding on to a really good player when they should have been looking to move and add 3 or 4 pieces. Because I think there was a time Whit Merrifield would have gotten a tremendous package back for that organization and really helped them. This is a guy who led the AL in steals 3 times. I think he led the American League in hits 3 times. Just a really nice, steady, valuable player. Never played on a winning team in his career. And you think about that. He's when he goes to Toronto, this will be the first time he's with a winning team. So we'll see if he helps them get into the playoffs and do some damage.
All right, Chris, what's your inside number?
So my inside number is 10, and this goes to the number of hits allowed by Ty Madden the other day in his final start with the West Michigan Whitecaps. And I bring this up for a couple reasons. The first is, of course, that he was immediately promoted after the game. So I don't think those 10 hits bothered the Tigers that much. I also mention it because that was, I believe, our buddy Trevor Huth was there to watch it live. And so his first look at Ty Madden happened to be his worst start of the year, at least from that standpoint, which is, it's not always a bad thing to get a really bad look at a guy, because then you set a pretty low level, and if you see him again, it's fine. But it also was interesting to me because 10 hits is the exact amount of hits that Ty Madden allowed in all of July in 18 innings. So he gave up 10 in 5 innings in that game, and then had given up 10 in the previous 18 innings. And then in June, he had given up 12 hits in 25 innings. So 22 hits over the previous 33 innings, and then 10 and 5. So just kind of one of those bizarre, random things that you see, and we'll see how he fares up in Double-A Erie now.
Yeah, his first start will be Sunday for the Seawolves in Portland, so that will be watch that on MLB TV. So my inside number this week involves a trade, and it involves with the Jays and Dodgers, the 0.82 and 12.27. And that is the 0.82 is the ERA of Nick Falso, and the number 12.27, which is K per 9. And the Dodgers, who are very good, the Dodgers gave up, by the way, Clayton Beeter. So they were able to replace him with a guy who might be even better. And so in terms of what his potential is, I think that in terms of what the Dodgers are getting up here, he's firing 97, 98. He's touched 100, but his changeup averages 18 inches of fade. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And this is all in the recent Fangraphs article, and Justin Choi did a really good job of dissecting the trade a little bit, but that is right there, a good example of good scouting right there in a trade. An arm that maybe he may not be a top 30 prospect, or he might not have a household name, but the Dodgers did their homework and they saw something in him for a guy who was drafted in the 2020 draft. And again, that stands to me because it was a 4th round pick, and the Dodgers didn't really, they were able to expend a starter that they didn't need, and now they replenished their minor leagues with losing Beeter, and then they put a guy in there. That's smart. That's just genius to me.
I'm really glad you brought up that trade, because when that happened, I was like, oh man, that's the Dodgers. Like, they pulled another fast one. Like, they've done this before. I remember they got Josiah Gray And I think what Jeter Downs and somebody else in a deal that it essentially looked like it was a trade with the Reds, and it involved like Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp, and it was like, this is just a weird salary dump. But somehow they got these two little kind of, vaguely interesting prospects back, and then years later they were able to use Downs to get Mookie Betts. He wasn't the main or the only guy in that, but he was one of the guys. And then they used Gray to get Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. And I remember Nick Frasso because I got super nerdy for the 2020 draft and did a whole 5-round mock draft. And I compared him to Matt Manning because he went to Loyola Marymount where Manning was going to go. And he was this super athletic pitcher. And there are actually videos of him doing like a between the legs dunk at the Cape Cod League.
Nice.
I thought he was injured after joining pro ball, but apparently he's still around and throwing well. And yeah, don't be shocked if 2 years from now, Nick Frasso is a number 3 starter for the Dodgers. they're just so good at this sort of thing. Again, creativity.
And that's exactly, again, we're not, I know we sound like we have Dodger blue all over our lips or nose or whatever, but it's not. But it's just when I looked at the dynamics of the trade and I realized, okay, well, they replenished and Beater. Look, Clayton Beater didn't seem like he's been. They were using him as a reliever, it seemed like, instead of a starter, and how they were staging him out. So again, it's just a good example of talent procurement there by the Dodgers, and just again doing it well, and LL Cool J style, really. All right, it's time now for the good and bad, the ugly. Chris, what is your good and bad, the ugly this week?
So my good is Austin Reilly. We briefly touched on him last week. I think we just mentioned him because he had been performing well. But yeah, so he had one hell of a July. He hit 423, 460, 885 with 15 doubles and 11 home runs. I think that was a record for. I think it was a record for extra base hits for a Braves hitter in a month. It was good for 267 weighted runs created plus that month, and 2.6 WAR in July alone. He's now up to 5 WAR for the season, and would seem to be in the thick of the National League MVP hunt. And and then he just made $225 million. The Braves were like, yeah, you know what, he might be pretty good. Let's sign him. And so yeah, that's that's I don't know who it was that brought it up, but I know that Jed retweeted it, and it was pointing out how much Austin Reilly struggled in his first year and a half in the majors. As an example of, hey, it's way too early to give up on Spencer Torkelson. And that's a great point, because some guys, it takes a little bit longer to figure out what they can do at the big league level. And so hopefully, point to him and say that's what could happen. My bad, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, is the Eric Skubal arm fatigue. Now, hopefully this is just overabundant caution. We always hope that, right? We've hoped that every injury this year. But I couldn't help but kind of, I wrote what amounts to like a requiem for Michael Fulmer's career with the Tigers at Motor City Bengals the other day. And I was kind of struck by the similarities of a lot of it. Fulmer was immediately awesome, right, in the majors and rookie of the year. And Eric Skubal wasn't. It took him basically until this year to really, we saw the flashes, but this year is when he really showed it. But I had forgotten that there were actually people pushing to trade Fulmer at the 2017 deadline, including Sean Windsor from the Freep. And it was the same thing, like, hey, he's their best young player. He's going to get the most in return. And it was, the only problem was that it was clear the Tigers were on a downtrend, but it wasn't quite yet clear that they were just going to sell everything until the end of August, back when they used to have 2 trade deadlines. So it was like 6 weeks early before they missed out. But Fulmer was pitching as good or better than he did as a rookie in his second year until he had elbow soreness in like July, and he missed a couple weeks. He came back, he made 4 more rough starts, and then got the soreness back again. And that was it. That basically ended his effectiveness as a starting pitcher. He came back the next year and put up like a 4.7 ERA. He had an oblique injury. Then later in the year, tore the meniscus in his knee. They changed his mechanics. He had to wear a knee brace. And because when they changed his mechanics, tore his elbow ligament. And then it's, 2020, he's back as a bad short starter. Finally figured it out in 2021. But, basically that one injury led to 4 years of nothing. And I don't want to be like a huge, like, negative person, but I just worry a little bit that the same thing could repeat with Scooble. I'm hoping not. I hope it, like I said, it's just caution. But yeah, that made me worry a little bit. And my ugly, I think you may have mentioned this, was the Josh Hader trade for the Brewers, which didn't make much sense even before the latest aspect of it to me. Now, I know that Josh Hader hasn't been himself lately. Like, he had a couple really rough outings a few weeks back, including giving up 4 or 5 runs in an inning. But this is still, one of the top 3 relievers in baseball over the last 5-6 years. And relievers do kind of die out quickly, so maybe the Brewers know what's coming. But I still didn't think they got much in return for a guy who's that good. And he's getting a little bit more expensive, but there's still a year of control. And they got back Taylor Rogers, right, who I believe is a free agent after this year. So they're getting 2 months of a pretty good reliever. But it's, they've basically replaced a guy just for a little amount of time. They got Esteury Ruiz, who I like, but is probably a 4th outfielder at best because he doesn't hit the ball hard. And they got an interesting pitching prospect named Robert Gasser, who could be good. Who knows? I mean, the Brewers are good at pitching development. Maybe they see something there. He's going to be really good down the road, but he's not a not top 100 prospect or anything like that. And then they got Dinelson Lamet, or Lamet, however you pronounce his name, who was at one point he was a thing, right? He was a good young starter, despite only having 2 pitches, and then he got injured and he's been really bad. And then today they cut him. They just released him.
That was a shocker.
I was like, wait, what? It was almost like an NBA trade. Like you don't often see that in Major League Baseball, where they trade for a guy and like they're not saving money on that, right? Unless they have the Padres paying his salary. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't really know what the Brewers are doing there. And to that point, Hader was making $11 million this year because it is ARB2 or ARB3 a year. And so he's probably going to make like $14-15 million next year. But again, it's just one of the, like, if he were on the free agent market, he'd be making at least what Raisel Iglesias is making, if not much more. So that's still a relative bargain. I just felt like the Brewers were just trying to offload some money there, which is a pretty big bummer to me.
Yeah, well, that actually kind of corresponds with my ugly too. Uber, what's yours?
My good. I went back to 1990 and I started reading a book, which was really amazing. I don't read books anymore, unfortunately. A couple a year only. But I ordered The Church of Baseball by Ron Shelton. It's about the making of the movie Bull Durham. I am only a few chapters in, but I'm loving it. It's really good. If you loved the movie, I think you're going to really enjoy kind of the recounting of how this all came together, how they chose cast, how some things that the studio was worried about. It's really, I believe the rest of it's going to be worth my time. I'm really enthused early on here, so I just wanted to put that out for people if they're looking for something to read. The Church of Baseball is pretty good. Bad. The Nats. I feel bad for Nats fans. I don't know how many Nats fans there really are, but you just think back to that 2019 team, or even just before that when they had Harper. I mean, they had Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer. They had their Corbin before his career died. He was looking like a possible big-time player. They paid him like one for sure. It's just, it happened in Detroit. It happened in Washington. It's happened elsewhere, but it's always sad, you'd like to. We know the reserve clause was bad for baseball and for players back in the old days when you could keep a team together. But obviously, that's why you need a GM who can be fluid and make things happen and stay on top of this. You think Mike Rizzo's even be that guy because that ownership has spent money before. So it's really hard to believe this was all kind of broken up in just a matter of a couple of years. My ugly Toledo Mud Hens uniforms. Brutal. They're in town. I'm going tomorrow night, and I'm hoping to go on Sunday as well. So I've been watching, and they have the same uniforms they had last year. We got to do something, right? Those red uniforms with the yellow birds on the sleeves, got some black in there as well. And then you got red, yellow, and black. To top it off, they have a clashing gray pants with them. You know, they're just it's brutal. I mean, they was it something on sale? Is that what they got? You know,
I've heard other announcers make fun of like, wow, they're interesting jersey choices. They're
brutal. They're ugly. Yeah. They need an overhaul. They should go to something like just a classic pinstripe or something, just to cleanse the palate of the garish thing they're wearing now. So there's they probably won't listen to me, but they should do it.
Well, I you know what, Uber, I firmly agree with you, because even something along the lines of, look, if they went with something, I would actually be fine with something. These jerseys is what I remember the most when I was growing up, because I always thought Toledo was this kind of far away place when you hear about minor league baseball when I was growing up. And this, of course, now it doesn't want to capture. Oh, there it is. So I look at them. Let's see here. This is them in the late 80s. That right there, I'd be fine with that right there. Although this setup right here, this setup is atrocious. This is when they were a Twins affiliate, though. This is when they were not a Tigers affiliate. Just keep that in mind. But that's bad.
The deep V.
The deep V.
Reminds me of those old Vancouver Canucks jerseys.
Well, you know, all those colors they use now, if they just got rid of 3 of them and used one, if they were like all black or all red or all yellow or, you know, all gray, but they just have all those colors mixed together and it's just not very eye pleasing, I don't think.
Yeah, and look, this is their away jerseys. This is fine because they still have that old logo right there. Oh, look at Kevin Ritz. Nice. Look at that. Travis Fryman. Oh, man. All right. I'll get completely sidetracked with this, but yeah. Oh, look at that. Milt Kyler. Ooh. See that logo right there. That is a cool logo they should bring back. With that. Phil Clark. Oh, what a waste of a draft pick. Ugh. Anyways, all right. I'm too sidetracked. So we did get 2 participating listeners who left good, bad, and ugly. So Christopher, thank you so much. You left one in the YouTube chat. His good was Matt Manning's return. Matt Manning is returned back to the rotation. The bad, the Tigers defense, agreed. And the ugly, the Tigers front office. And then we have one from Tim, who is a loyal listener, who emailed the old Tigers chat, the old Tigers GR or SRD email. And that's why I mentioned earlier the email, woodwardtigers@gmail.com. So if you want to get a hold of us, but he said, this is Tim, and he said, hey guys, here's an ugly. Tigers broadcast on Apple TV, Peacock, YouTube TV, etc. I watch a lot of Tigers, but it's almost like the jerks on MLB.com or MLB don't want us to be able to watch games. I'm not going to pay for another streaming service, download another app, try to remember another username, password. Anyone over 50 is going to struggle and try to locate games on these services. Come on, MLB, this stinks. I want to watch, but didn't today. This was Sunday. He sent the email when Peacock was doing that, but it wasn't on Bally Sports. Ugly. So, he said, love the show, guys. So,
well, that's the second time this year the Tigers have had a Friday night Amazon, Sunday Peacock double dip, right?
Yeah.
That seems like they could spread that out to other teams over the course of the season.
At least for the Peacock broadcast, they had Jason Benintendi on this one. Last one, they didn't have one. Jason's the best.
He is really good. He's going to Fox now. Did you see that article?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and
that's pretty cool for him. That's a big step up. I hope he gets the World Series at some point down the road. I don't know if he will, when he will, but he's excellent. I'll take a little bit of exception there. I'm over 50, and I found those games, so anybody can do it.
You know what? Each their own. I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm trying my hardest. Like I'm trying to avoid being my father. My father.
Nobody takes cash anymore.
Yeah. My favorite was when my dad would try to like you look at my phone, and I remember before he did mechanic work into his late 70s, and we were trying to set up a timing chain once, and he'd go Reilly. In Spanish, he'd just go. He was trying to figure out the timing chain, and he didn't have the diagram because he had the Haynes books, those Haynes automotive books that you gospel for those things. And I have one. I still have one for my old Ford Escort. I just keep it as for a memento's sake. But anyway, he didn't have it for the car he was working on. So I'm like, all right, well, I go to YouTube, I go to Google, pull it up, and he looks at me. He's just like, And he just and he just sighs. He goes, "Man, what the hell was I thinking not learning this shit?"
Yeah.
He's like, he goes, he goes, "Tú tienes un computer, tu teléfono un computer." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, it's more computing power than Apollo 9 or Apollo 13," and he'd just be like, anyway. So my good this week is the Andre Lipsius to Toledo. Not because, of course, this is selfish. I can lie, because I've been a big Andre Lipsius, as the kids would say, stand for a while. And see, that I do my age thing now. But all seriousness, but it's also good because the 2019 draft class. So he joins Ryan Kreidler, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Bo Brisky, and then Austin Bergner, who also got called up to Toledo for the 2019 draft class to play in Toledo this season. Now, it doesn't sound like a significant thing, but if you think about it from this standpoint, Carpenter's going to probably get a call up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Kreidler at some point will get a call up, and Brisky's already been there. So to me, the 2019 class right now might be the best draft class the Tigers have had in the last 30 years. I mean,
good job, Alavila.
Yeah.
No.
Like, in terms of Lipsius, I know Lipsius is a fan, but there's people in the organization like him because he walks and he's pretty solid defensively. He's not flashy. He does a good job defensively. And as Scott Bentley would say, and myself too, he's an OPS machine. And the fact is, since day one, since the day I saw him at West Michigan adjust his swing, when people talk about how long his swing is, he shortened up his swing. He's a tinker. And he's a guy that goes out there, does his job, and goes home. Like, to me, those are the kind of players you see on the bench. It's a utility guy. And look, I know that some people like the names and all that, and that's great. But since day one, I've always liked his approach to the plate. And I mean, even the scout report, he's, talk about how slow footed he is and fielding wise, but he's been a pretty good defender. And it was good to see that. And Austin Bergner, by the way, has also been pitching very well. But Chris, I remember you talking about him before. He was kind of, you called him a sleeper, correct? I mean, when the Tigers drafted him.
Well, I mean, I back when they drafted him, I thought they were going to develop him as a starter, but he started in pro ball as a reliever, and it was like, well, we'll see what happens here. And he's just a guy who's improved a lot since moving into the rotation last year. Although his fastball velocity is down like 2-3 miles an hour this year. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the 2019 draft, even just like organizational guys, they've got a really good group from that year's draft. You got Navigado, you've got Brendan White, you've got Ted Stuka was down there pitching today. I'm looking at who else do we have? And Zach Hess was a guy who was going to be a big leaguer. They thought, he went down for Tommy John surgery. Jake Holton has been a really good org guy. Corey Joyce, Andrew Magno is still around pitching. So yeah, I mean, it was a good class. And when you said, best in like 30 years, I went back to, I think it was 2005 was the year they ended up getting like a dozen guys to the big leagues. I'm checking now, but it would have been like the Brennan Bosch, Scott Sizemore, Matt Joyce draft. I'm looking. So not Brennan Bosch, but yeah. So 2005 was Mabin, Chris Robinson, Kevin Whelan, Jeff Larish, Cleek Thomas, Anthony Claggett, Matt Joyce, Casper Wells, Michael Holloman, Burke Badenhop, and Will Rhymes all made it from that year. And then an unsigned fella named Alex Avila. But maybe it was 2000. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be one of the more prolific drafts for them, at least, and could be one of the best if Riley Green does what we think he could do.
Yeah, and look, it just, to me, I know we've been bashing the Tigers all night, and that's not our intention. We're trying to be objectively realistic, but to me, I like that. The fact that we're sitting there talking about a couple guys that are, Toledo's usually the cast of veterans that teams have set aside, and a lot of times guys that are willing to go and this is their final chance. But to have Lipsius there now along with Bergner, and Bergner to me has been kind of going on the radar in Double-A. He's been quietly having a really good season. Yeah. He's been consistent on every start, and so I think that's a good sign. I mean, for all the crap that's happened this season, to have essentially what, 6? I can't do math right now. 5 players From the 2019, is it 5 or am I
No,
miscounting?
in Toledo right now.
Yeah, or have been in Toledo rather.
Yeah, that sounds about so. Carpenter, you said,
Yeah,
Lipsius, Reidler,
yep, and Brisky,
Brisky,
and
and
Green, yeah.
has made it there, and Berger, right? That's 6.
Yeah. Oh, it's 6. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, as I was listening to Bergner's last start, I think at Erie, listening to Greg talk, and they were referencing the Tigers had just made one of their, prospect videos on Bergner, which is always a good sign that, like, hey, they like this guy, they're going to move him.
Yeah.
Apparently his dad was such a stone cold Steve Austin fan that's where he got his name. His name is Austin Stone Bergner.
Nice.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh man, that now I have to just I have to find this now. I have to find this piece of information for reasons that are
yeah, and apparently from what it sounds like, he's very much like a JD Martinez in terms of like note taking and really going through each one of his outings and doing details to find out what he did right. Yeah, so
I said, give me a hell yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There you go.
That'll be his entrance music from the bullpen.
It's he's fallen a little bit of the Garrett Hill path, although he was a top 10 pick. So there's unlike Garrett Hill, who was 26th, 27th round. But yeah, there are some things to at least not feel bad about, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, they've got some interesting young players.
If this is not his bullpen when he walks out, this needs to be, and no one's gonna get it. Well, no. So if anybody tries to say, "Oh yeah, this pull factor," like, no, you heard it first. You're on this podcast. So him going out. All right. I'm getting too far off. Yeah. Anyways, anytime we can bring up things that outside of baseball that we like I like the professional wrestling. I don't follow like I used to, but anyway. So my bad is the Tigers, unfortunately. Twins pitchers struck out Tiger batters 41 times in 3 games, and they struck out 14 times today.
Joe Ryan has their number.
Joe Ryan looks at the Tigers and just goes, all right.
He's sidling up to the buffet.
Yeah. He's like, no chance. No chance.
Joe Ryan is a guy to point to when people always say, oh, don't trade with the Rays. Like, yeah, the Twins did pretty well in that trade. They got rid of Nelson Cruz, who was, a good hitter for them, but they didn't need him anymore. And they got Joe Ryan, who's going to be one of their probably top 3 starters for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just, again. And my ugly is the Cubs. And the reason why is not moving Wilson Contreras or Ian Happ. And now Ian Happ does have some player control. He's under control till 2023. But the Cubs have been fire sailing for a while now. So you thought that they would continue that theme. And maybe they overvalue people. I don't know. But, yeah, I was kind of surprised by that, honestly, because I think, in the last 3 or 4 trade deadlines, they have been always a team that's just like, you know what? You guys want somebody? Here, go, get out of here.
Really surprised the Mets didn't make that happen.
Yeah.
That was where I thought the Mets or the Rays, but the Mets especially.
Yeah, and I guess in my mind, the qualifying offers are back on the table now because they couldn't come to an agreement about the international draft. That was going to be the players' concession or whatever, or the owner's concession was like, we'll get rid of the qualifying offer system if you give us this draft. So I guess the Cubs, they're going to make Contreras an offer at the end of the year, and they value that potential draft pick more than anything that they were going to get in return. So maybe that's where they are in their competitive process, where they think that getting some more bonus pool money is better for them than getting a player. But it is kind of shocking. Although, David on the Tigers Minor League Report podcast made a pretty good point the other day about how trading catchers or moving catchers around is a little bit different than trading other players because they're so, they've done so much work with their current pitching staff and they've got to go and learn in another dozen arms real quick. And it maybe doesn't work out as well as most people would think. But Maybe the Tigers will sign Contreras next year.
Yeah, or maybe they'll go after. I think it was Ghost Ghostbath in Discord recommended the Tigers go after Lamet. I thought, as a project. So actually, I like that idea. So, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, Michael Mayer was saying that in our YouTube chat, basically saying what you're saying there. And if you know what, do the Tigers get a pick if that's a player option, right? So that wouldn't be the case, correct?
He can just opt out for nothing.
Yeah. So
which is that one is mystifying to me too, unless they got some sort of promise from him that he's going to re-sign with them. Yeah, you're at risk of losing Chafin for absolutely nothing. Which, again, not to be mean about the guys that they got. Maybe that's not a whole lot different than what they got for Fulmer and Grossman, but it's still weird that, again, one of the best left-handed relievers on the market, who also gets right-handers out, couldn't move him. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. So that is our segments for the week. And so we got questions to get to. And I know I feel bad last week because Steve Cook, who is a loyal listener, left us a question last week and missed out. So I think he left us a question on Woodward Tigers about the 2019 draft, I believe. I think. I'll double check. He's listening right now, so he'll remind me here in a second. I know that for a fact. Steve's fantastic people. So let's see here. Well, Chris, where do you want to start with the questions this week?
So let me. We did get the one.
We got the Mark question. We want to start with the Mark question?
Sure. So he said, "Hey, Rogelio, for players with at least 100 at bats on the Tigers, Reilly Greene is the only hitter with a barrel percentage over 10% at 10.8. Detroit is 30th in baseball in isolated power. I get Hinch playing hot bats with Reyes and Willie and Harold, but do you expect their playing time to be cut down at some point to see what we have with some AAA guys? They still need to at least try to be competitive, but also start looking toward next year's team. Inside the numbers." Oh, he has some inside the number stuff for us too.
All right, nice.
His inside the number was 67, the number of years Vin Scully in the Dodgers booth. But so yeah, do we expect these kind of middling players, the Castros and Victor Reyes, to continue to get at bats down the stretch and hit second, third, and fourth for some reason? But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Huber, go ahead.
I think that, there's 50 something games left, 55.
Yeah.
I think they're going to stick with the guys. I think the Castro brothers and Vic are going to get their at bats. I think we're going to see a little bit of Carpenter, and then very late you might see a little bit of Kreidler. I mean, look how long they've had Clemens. How much is he playing?
I mean, he did. I mean, yeah. I think he started. Yeah, he started today at third.
Yeah, you might see a little, and they don't expand the rosters like they used to, so there's not going to be all these extra spots. So, do you see them? They're not going to DFA. I mean, Willie Castro, he's actually playing a little better. So, I think it's going to be. I think they're going to ride it out fairly status quo here.
I think if they put Miguel Cabrera, who's been battling knee problems, which is why he explains why his batting average has gone down. He's gone out there like a trooper. And if anybody says anything otherwise, you can kindly screw off, quite frankly. Because again, if the guy's been playing hurt, he's really had no choice. So if they put him on the IL, then I could see Carpenter getting a shot. Daz Cameron's back in the house, so I think Daz Cameron should get some more time. They should give Daz Cameron more time to see what the hell they have with him.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I agree.
And I would think that, that's what I think. They should play that.
Here's the thing. I enjoy watching Victor Reyes because that's been kind of my shtick for a long time. I like the guy, and he's a decent enough player. But we know what he is. I mean, if he did, if he became the guy who plays once a week, that would make a lot of sense. I just don't know if they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen small movement in this realm, right? They DFA'd Derek Hill. They finally, I guess, seen enough for Derek Hill. So I do think that they're going to want to get Baddoo as much playing time as possible because there's some upside remaining there, and we saw that he was actually a pretty good player as a rookie. Now there's a lot of holes that have been exposed, but they want to see if they can recapture that. And I do, I've always said that AJ Hinch seems to really like Willie Castro, and everybody seems to like Harold Castro. He got 3 hits today, so I do think those guys are going to continue to play. But yeah, and you also have to factor in that Austin Meadows is going to come back at some point, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't see them making like wholesale IL trips or cutting guys to make room for Gary Carpenter or Kreidler or Lipsius or anybody like that. Those guys do need to be added to the 40-man after the season, so maybe we'll see them, like you said, but not expecting a ton of playing time for him.
And going back to Cabrera, I am glad that they put the word out that he's hurting. Someone asked the question and Hinch gave the answer, because I put out last night. He hit that ball up the middle, and Correa barely stopped it. He dove. He was on his stomach for a long time. He didn't even get up fast. I thought, Miguel's going to beat that one out, surely. And he got up, threw him out. He threw him out by 10 feet. And I had a little bit of a snarky tweet about it. So I would like to take that back now that I know that he's really been battling a bad knee again. Would have been good information to know. But you could just see that was the play to me. That was crystal clear. I mean, Victor Martinez would have beaten that out on a similar play.
Look, I blanked out Derek Hill on purpose because I was Chris brought up the graph on Twitter the other day about the first round draft picks, which have been it's bad, but I thought Derek Hill didn't get Derek Hill when he got a chance. I know he struggled sometimes at the play, but I thought he's a guy that when they platooned him right, I thought he was fine. Versus putting somebody like you're putting Willie Castro out there in center field, wanted him to learn on the fly. So but then again, also it was kind of necessary because they have to at some point figure out what the hell they have with who they DFA the wrong. Oh, Jeremy, that's good stuff.
I did.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all. So, but it is what it is.
There are a surprisingly number of classic rock-based puns that you can make from that. It's like Derek and the Dominoes. What comes after the Derek Hill DFA?
Yeah, Bell Bottom Blues.
I think I wrote over the Tigers are over the hill and far away. So Led Zeppelin. But yeah, I don't know. So the other questions we have, what do we have here? We got Steve Butts. He gave us a good, bad, and ugly. So the good, the Twins, Thad Levine getting Tyler Mahle might have sealed the division race. The bad, the Tigers' clown car infield defense bleeding unearned runs. And the ugly, Al Avila's most impressive movement at the deadline involved his bowels and 2 months. I don't think we need to know that, Steve.
Yeah. Oh, man.
How about that?
By the way, in the YouTube chat, Stop It says Derek never looked comfortable when he didn't pass the eye test. That's fair. Again, I just think the way the Tigers used him, it wasn't a hitch guy.
Time about him. Derek Hill he would get hurt standing in a stiff breeze.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right, Uper. I'm not gonna. Again, it's probably a thing where if Hinch doesn't like him, then Hinch has his guys.
Yeah,
plain simple as that. But that was a good bad, the ugly there by Steve. Thank you for that. Did you get Steve Cook's question, Chris?
I didn't see it.
You know what?
I see.
I think I'll look for it now.
Right. I have one from Nick Spillane, and then we got Deadly Ninja Bees.
All right, go ahead with Nick's.
Nick said, do you guys see any benefit of hanging on to Chafin and Jimenez? Chafin likely walks at season's end, and Jimenez doesn't have the track record of sustained success. Why wasn't the needle moved for the Tigers to deal with these two players? I mean,
certainly that's been the big thing. A lot of people have said that, relievers are so volatile, and the Tigers' ledger with Joe Jimenez is certainly more negative than positive. So now that he was, really, he's been great this year, no question about it. It probably would have behooved them to really work hard to find a deal instead of waiting for something to come to them. And then maybe it wasn't out there. Maybe other teams don't trust him either after they've seen a lot of his struggles. But now he's coming back next year, and he'll be coming back off of a good season. So we'll just have to hope for the best and see if he can replicate this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If they had traded Fulmer and Chafin and got something decent, I would be like, that's fine. Keep Jimenez. You're gonna need some good arms back there, and like you said, he's been great this year. Like the improvement he's made, I just did not see coming at any point.
No.
He's dropped his walk rate by like 20% or something ridiculous. He was walking close to 7 per 9 last year, and it's 1.75 this year. Yeah, so there could be some benefit there, but again, this is probably a guy that you're either going to try to trade in the offseason or trade at next year's deadline. So I don't know. I don't picture them signing him to an extension or anything like that. So yeah, I guess again, it just feels like a missed opportunity for some value. But at least that one makes a little bit more sense to me than Chafin, who might just be for nothing.
The one good thing I'll say about Joe, unless I'm forgetting something, he's healthy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the guy answers the bell. He sucked a lot of the time over the years, but he's there. You know, he's got the availability on his side. So that to me, if he has found something that works, that does the fact that he'll be available next year is a good thing too.
Yeah. I think that Jimenez has turned a corner a little bit in terms of consistency. He was really good the second half of the season last year, and but he got even better. And I think that his fastball spin was something that was always a plus, but everything else was just bad. But Jimenez has proven himself to be, along with Vest, you have a pretty good setup for the bullpen next year. And look, not to sound like I'm being pessimistic about Funkhauser, but I don't think Funkhauser is going to be in the plans next year. I think it's going to take a while before he even does. And if he is, it's not going to be till midseason. But nevertheless, yeah, as far as Chafin goes, yeah, he has a player option, and he answered. I think he's been messing with the media all week. He's just like, he might come back. Who knows? I don't know. Paraphrasing, but it was something like he said. The way he said it is like, as he's eating a Twinkie, because they're making a big deal. He was eating Twinkies today, which is like, who cares? Yeah. Man, he likes Twinkies. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he's an athlete, and he'll probably burn it off running back for the bullpen. I can't run that off. Oh, I can, but I mean, you know what I mean. Anyway, the question. Well, we have a question in YouTube. Too. We'll get to you in a second. But the question I want to get to before I forget was from Steve, and I like this question a lot. Perez, he was talking about in terms of Perez. He's thinking Winslow Perez, the second baseman in 2023 at some point, and Scope gets phased into the background. Is that something that's a possibility? I personally, I know he has a back injury. He came back in the lineup tonight. He had a couple of walks. If Perez can not get over the yips of throwing correctly, I think that is totally feasible. I like his numbers this year. He's done a very good job of adjusting in AA, and he's put himself back on the radar for the Tigers in terms of positional prospects wise. But again, it would have to be how he finishes the season, how he starts spring training, and what the Tigers decide to do, because they have to make the decision on making him on the 40-man decision to Parker Meadows. I think there's going to be a lot of roster turnover the next few months. If whoever's going to be the GM, whether it's even if it's Avila, let's say if it is Avila, they have to make a lot of decisions. They have a lot of decisions to make on the 40-man roster. This roster you're going to see here at the end of beginning of October, or excuse me, when the season ends, should be completely radically different. Motherfucker, this stupid spam. Christ. Anyway, sorry.
Naked HD. Yeah, Perez has put together one of the more impressive comeback seasons in the minors for the Tigers. Like you said, he's put himself firmly back in the prospect mix, hitting for power, speed, hitting for average, walking a lot. Like there's a lot to like there offensively. Like you said, the defense is basically the main question at this point. You hope that he can improve the consistency there, get him working with Santiago and Tram on a regular basis at the big league level, and maybe he can become an average defender at second base, and then you might have something. I still think that, I mean, as you said, if a completely new regime comes in, then all bets are off. We might see them, if they have carte blanche, we might see them cut Cabrera, cut Scope, cut Candelario. Like they might just cut everybody. But I assume that, and so it's one of the questions in the chat is like, are they going to go outside or stay inside? I feel like it's more likely that they stay inside right now. And in that case, I think that some of the people who are here, like Scope, are going to remain here. And so I don't see Winslow Perez supplanting him next year, unless there's an injury of some sort. I mean, Cody Clemens hasn't done it this year, and Scope has not been good offensively at all.
Yeah, and I know Clemens has made some decent plays at first base too. So to address the question real quick here in YouTube chat from Stop It. What do you think the chances they let Avila go? With this many injuries, doesn't seem right. But if they did let him go, who do you see next? And that's the $1 million question. I think if they do go, I think they go eternally. They go with somebody like Mezin or Jason
Sartori.
Yeah, they might go that way. I don't know. So that's what I think in terms of outside the organization. I don't know, because there's so many candidates out there. There's Will Rhymes out in LA, who the former Tiger, who's now the director of player development for the Dodgers. There's so many different candidates out there, but if they win it, I think they go eternally first before they go external. That's just my opinion. So
I'll put that Stanford guy out there, Garco. Telling you, dark horse.
Yeah.
I mean,
he might have a good synergy already.
There's no shortage of really interesting, good, executives that are in an assistant capacity for other organizations. I mentioned earlier today, Mike Groupman, who is a scout. I think he might have been with the Tigers at one point early in his career, but he's now the assistant GM at Boston. The Brewers, I think in 2017, brought him in to completely revitalize their international market, which was not very good. And he turned it around very quickly to the point where they now have a guy this year who might be the next Ronald Acuna Jr. in Jackson Chourio.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who can do that would be good for me, because I feel like the Tigers have their failures on the international front have been particularly stark and troublesome to me. But yeah, there are guys that just about any contender, Dodgers, Cardinals, Rays, anybody, bring somebody in, and they're probably going to be an upgrade, unfortunately.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It could be anything. So, all right. So let's finish up real quick. So we have the Deadly Ninja Bees question. Is that correct?
Yeah, he said, is the Tigers front office trying to improve the team? 2, we've seen over 100 games. Where do you rank this offense historically? And 3, promote Avila, hashtag. So
promote him to demote him. Yes.
Yeah.
Wrong!
Right.
Yeah, I mean, are they trying to improve the team?
To me, the answer again to that question is, it's more of an indictment that they didn't have much to move that was really valuable at this deadline. It's not so much that they didn't get a lot for what they did move. Okay, that's fine. That whatever. But they didn't have a marquee talent that, hey, this guy is someone you should come and get and help you win a World Series. They didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
If you want to make the argument of Tarek Skubal, fine. But again, you're basing that on like 15 starts this year. I mean, I don't know how many contenders we're going to say, oh, yeah, we got to get that guy. They didn't have anyone like that. And that's, to me, that's the greater indictment of over not getting anybody for what they did deal.
There's one thing about this too that and Walter brings up a good point about really international talent. Christian Santana's having a really good season, and yet they don't. Here's something that I noticed about the pipeline account for the Tigers. So, like we mentioned earlier in the week, Tiger Minor Report hit over 10,000 followers on Twitter. We got to get those YouTube numbers up to 1,000. If we get the YouTube over the end of the year, I'll be over the moon. So, but I would expect more of emphasis on Campos and Santana and Sequeira. Santana's having a really good year. I mean, he's going to be probably the number one Tigers prospect at some point in the next couple of months, honestly. We have him on our top 5, but it's just, again, that is a sign, a good sign, because it's been a while since we've had an international, since Stephen Moya, really? I mean, if in terms of positional talent, Stephen Moya, Christ.
Moya, it was Moya, Machado, and
what was the other? Wilkins Ramirez,
Harold Castro, Juarez was pretty highly ranked within the system, or at least
bring out the hits.
Thomas, Domingo Leyva,
Gorkis Hernandez.
There you go.
Somehow he ends up being a giant.
He was the He was the Midwest League MVP one year.
He
I think
was.
with like
Yeah.
2 home runs.
The future's bright. Yeah. Come on, bring it in. Gorky's
Right.
You know,
Hernandez.
and the funny thing was, I remember looking this up because I was on that Tiger chat room a lot. He was the MVP, and the MVPs of the Midwest League in their years prior to him were Albert Pujols, Joe Mauer, and Adam Dunn, and some other big name. And so then it was Gorky Hernandez right after that. You're thinking, man, they're just going to keep cranking out stars, you know? No.
Yeah, I want to say, was that 2007 or 2006? Because I feel like it was like he beat Justin Upton for it, and Justin Upton had like ridiculous numbers.
I want to say it's
So, yeah.
2006. I want to say.
So it was 2007. Hernandez hit 293 with 4 home runs and 54 steals. 54 steal. Yeah. So anyway, good
We
time.
digress. Yes.
Yeah. Digress. Yeah. And was that it for the questions, Chris?
Yep, that's all I saw.
Okay, that's all I saw on my end. We got Mark's question. And yeah, that wraps up for another podcast this week again. Permanent day we're going to be moving to is Wednesdays because it's just a lot easier for everybody. With the Tigers seemingly having a lot of road games back or games where they're playing in the afternoon on Wednesdays, it makes a lot of sense, and there's no baseball going on. And as far as I can tell, TV-wise, it's a perfect day. Thursdays usually there's something good on. Wednesdays, not so much, from my experience at least. So, but yeah, and before I get out of there's a nice comment there. It feels like the Tigers are just part of other teams' development program, or just to help them get better. So again, if you want to email us a question during the week, woodwardtigers@gmail.com. We'll put it in the show description. And check out the latest article. Chris has got something over at MotorCityBengals.com. I'm going to be dropping a Vila piece as well soon. And I have this Vila Pro. Okay, so I've been working on this video project for a while now. I've just been, like I said, some personal things have been going on. So, by the way, if you want to support the Patreon, TigersMinorLeagueReport.com, or excuse me, Patreon/Tiger Minor Report. The reason, as far as the Patreon just helps us with equipment and all that stuff. It goes a long way. And maybe, guess what? I can spend more time writing and doing those things. Woodward pays me decently. It's part-time. But we do the minor league stuff for out of love. But if you could throw us a few bucks a month, I'm not trying to beg, but that way I don't have to work a full-time job in marketing anymore, because marketing absolutely, positively sucks. Okay? I'm just going to be real here, okay? For potential jobs out there, I like marketing. I do. Let me rephrase that. I like marketing. I just want to work somewhere where it's normal, insane, and not weird. And I'd like to do this full-time. I'm not gonna lie. I would love to do this full-time, and I feel like I would get better at it doing it full-time. I think we're pretty good now, but I think we'd be a lot better. So yeah, Walter, thank you for everybody who supports the Patreon. Thank you. I'm not complaining about that, but if you want to help us out, it goes a long way, and that way we can do this full-time. We can jump on and Chris doesn't have to write about video games anymore. And
I could use a fan for my phone. It made it 3 innings today in Lansing before it overheated. Yeah,
see, I usually come up there and I usually have the battery charger ready to go, because of Patreon. I have the extra spare battery charger that I could go to Chris and go, hey, here, use that.
It was hot out there today, man.
Yeah, it was hot. So
the A's GM was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
not Billy Bean, the actual GM.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Chris Brown was on air today with the great Jesse
Goldberg Strassler. Yeah. And this is actually it was great. Jesse's awesome. Jesse, we're very fortunate. We've become friendly with Jesse and Dan and Greg, and these guys are all awesome announcers and really good people. And I was just sitting there eating my Michigan Munchies, which is a thing they sell at Lansing, which is fries, chicken tenders, and corn dog bites. And he's like, hey, you want to join? I'm like, sure. So I came in there and I got to witness Denzel Clark hit an inside the park home run, and
nice.
Did 3 half innings with him. And it's incredibly, I feel lucky, and it's really fun to do that. And like you get a new sense of awe for how well these guys keep track of the game and bring you back to what happened before and move you through the game. And it's like, yeah, they're incredibly talented. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And this is the first time, Dan Hasty has had me in there twice before. I think he's had you in at least twice, Rod.
Yeah.
But this is the first time it was actually Lansing, the home team. So if you want to hear me talk about baseball during a game, you can go to the app and listen to, I think it was the 6th through the 7th inning that I'm on there. So if you want to,
That's great.
He doesn't say anything about it until like later on in the evening. He was texting me earlier before the show. He's like, "Oh yeah, it was like, I could have tuned in. I mean, I was out and about. It
was bad because every time I've done this, I get like caught up in the moment and I don't go, hey, we have a podcast and we have, Jesse mentioned Tigers Minor League Report like a half dozen times, but I didn't mention the podcast. I didn't mention you, Raj. I feel bad. I didn't.
Don't worry about that. I don't care about that. I really don't care.
I don't. And so
I just want to listen to support my friend.
But I told him that you'd probably be up there tomorrow. So
yes, more than likely I will be going up there tomorrow. I got to make the decision between going to the opening game against Tampa, but then Lou Whitaker weekend is this weekend. So by the way, forgot to mention there'll be a Lou Whitaker montage. 7th inning, by the way, Jeremy, to answer the question on YouTube. So that's when Chris was on.
I was at 6th and 7th.
6th and 7th, yep. So there's going to be a Lou Whitaker montage I'm going to be dropping for Woodward Tigers. I'm actually finishing up. The Al Avila stuff is, like I said, it's getting there. But it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But the Lou Whitaker stuff, Saturday's going to be awesome. So anybody who's going to be at the game on Saturday, let me know if you're on Twitter or Discord or whatever. And I'll be sitting in the press box and being part of the ceremonies and I'll be running around. So if you want to talk about Lou Whitaker on camera, come find me and we'll definitely talk some sweet Lou Whitaker. That sounded wrong. But anyway.
Nice.
All right, folks. Have a good night. We'll talk to you next week. If not, we'll talk to you on social media.
Thanks, Jeremy.